What is going on, everybody? Good evening. It is December 1st. December 1st, here in the wild world we live in. Crazy stuff happening. Um, how's everybody doing? First and foremost, appreciate you guys jumping in here and saying hi and hanging out tonight for a little bit. Um, as it says in our little write up, we're going to be talking a little bit about a couple things that are near and dear to my heart. We're going to be talking about life, about the road to redemption, as it is. Some of the things in our life that we've gone through, things from our past that have helped sculpt our current life as it is today, and then our todays and how we can best use those to mitigate our tomorrows into the best future that we could possibly have. So, um, there's a lot of things that go into creating who we are, right? I mean, we go way back, right? We go back to our childhood, but we can go before that, right? Our parents' parents, the geography of the location in which we live. There's all these different factors that go into the foundation, the building blocks that are laid out before we ever even get a chance to open our eyes and throw out that first cry. But Mike, thank you so much for that. I appreciate you so much, brother. Um, and in that, I realized that all of those things get us going to a point where we get to where we're at, right? Which is born and on a path, and it's a windy path. It's a curvy path at times. It's a needless to say that it's been for me personally, my road has been one that's fraught with um, beauty, depth, diversity, adversity, lots of adversity, um, albeit a saboteur's world. I mean, I spent so much time sabotaging myself and doing things to damage myself in a huge way and that's where that redemption comes in. Because again, you have to find a way to utilize the struggles of your past as tools of personal growth and education to help push us into our tomorrows. And we've been seeing a lot of that in the world we exist in right now. We talk a lot about where people are from, what they did before, and where they're at. And we forget that there's a divide in there. There's a little bit of a delta between that, and the fact that there's a whole lot of life lived between and here. Like, there's a lot of life lived there, and that's where the real, I think, meat and potatoes of it is. That's where I think the real crux of our existence comes into play. Is the place where we are taking those points, cultivate, ruminate, and elevate, and move in the right direction. And that's where the character comes in. That's where the content of our character comes into play. And we're seeing a lot of things that are in the news right now. Things that are coming up that are sad and tragic. And a lot of this we spend time talking about. You know where this person or these people or this situation started, and what the core of their being really is. And really, a lot of that just comes down to the actions that are taking place at the time. We got to remember that, like, the things we do now are what we should and will be looked at, as the person that we exist as. So, and in the news, we do spend a lot of time. We spend so much time picking people apart and doing our best to tear people down and rip people apart and basically crucify people for the lives they've lived. And it's rough because there's a lot of people out there that have gone through a whole lot of stuff, man. So much stuff. Me personally, absolutely. The people in my circle, my friends, my family, the life we've lived, we've all gone through some things that that have built the body that we're in now. Then we have that soul's trajectory, right? That we're on, that we're pushing towards, that we're looking for, stumbling towards perfection. Seeking salvation through the gift of grace. And I think that without going into a sermon, I think that's important. I think it's important that we live in that place. Afford yourself the grace too. Give yourself an opportunity to be flawed, be broken, to make mistakes. Lord knows I have. I have. You guys know I've made it very clear. I've got a less than perfect past. You know what I mean? My history that took me through, multiple incarcerations or arrests. Drug charges. I had an assault charge, a domestic assault charge that came into my world. That came out of a drug fueled argument. And when you get to a point where like you're living in that place, you live in a place where you're surrounded by all of that darkness. Like there's really no light in that. You don't see anything other than what you're in, and it's hard to see anything at that point. But again, those are the things that define me. And we'll talk a little more about like the world we live in, and maybe how those things played into who I am today. But I can say, without hesitation, without any drawback for anything, is to say that like I just got off the phone. I'm going to talk about this phone call I just had with my brother John. I call him my brother, not like my brother Adam today, who, again, big shout out to Adam, my brother, birthday today, best guy I know, most amazing human being. That might be pushing it because I know my sister would have something to say about that. But one of the most incredible humans you will ever meet, heart of gold, and has been a cornerstone for our family in so many ways. So Adam, happy birthday. I love you so much. Thank you for everything you've done to be my bodyguard, my protector, the slap to the back of my head when I needed it, and the unshaking and unwavering love that I've been able to rely on through everything that I've gone through. And so to you, brother, I wish you the most amazing and happy birthday. So I hope you're celebrating with your wife. I hope you and Anna are having an amazing time, and I look forward to seeing you soon. But John I met while I was incarcerated. I was locked up for a year. Get right down to it. I was locked up for a year. And while I was there, I met a guy named John. And we joke about collectively writing this book, but he came to me and said, "CJ, I'm really working on it." John went through so many things in life, so many things through his life that brought him to where we met, right? Sharing a cell and great confidence in the stories that we shared with each other about who we were and what we were hoping to accomplish and what we wanted to do when we got out. That kind of combo, the things that you ruminate over and you talk about. I had a list. Literally, I wrote a list on the wall, just in pencil on the white wall, of all the things that I wanted to do, all my goals for when I got out, and all the things that, everything from riding a bull to like being a radio DJ to learning to play the trumpet and the violin, like just things. But on those things, he reminded me that like on that, right at the very bottom before I left, was to change lives, and it wasn't just mine, because I knew that I was changed, but to change lives and to do what I could to help inspire that change in other people. And at first I was very nervous. At first I was really nervous about it when I got out, how the world was going to perceive me, because at this point I had to introduce myself. My name is CJ. I'm a 2-time felon. I'm a son, a brother, an uncle, a friend. There's all these things that define me, but out of all of those things in society, you're dubbed by that big F, the scarlet letter, if you will. And it was hard. It's been hard, when I was trying to find jobs and having to check in with your community custody officer, just make sure you do your UAs and you're coming in clean. And it was really difficult because society has such a tough time accepting reform. You know what I mean? Such a hard time allowing someone the opportunity to change and the grace that they're afforded by God. And those are things that I found in abundance over the course of all the time that I spent looking to correct my actions, right my wrongs through the better doings of my todays. And I went through it, and making those amends and trying to rebuild, and not just to mention the fact that you're coming out of incarceration. And that in itself it's a tough one for people to handle. When they hear that, you kind of get a pullback. People are nervous, like, well, are you a dangerous human being? I think every human can be dangerous. I know for me personally, I'm more of a danger to myself than anything. But you lose your voice when you, not just in the wake of the things you do, but you lose your voice even while you're doing the things that you're in. Your credibility, the sustenance, if you will, that makes you who you are is null and void. Even in my arrest, the last one, the one that took me to my ultimate reform and change, looking back over some of the I can't even call them the details, but the story that went into it. And I don't mean to laugh, but it was almost comical because it was the story told out of the tip of a needle. And that's kind of where it came from, was this wild drug-fueled antics of a story. And I realized I never even had a chance to talk about it. You know what I mean? It came down to an argument in my house where I was, having to throw people out of my home. But I had built a den of drug use, and you incubate yourself with people that'll help you stay where you're at, because God forbid you see the light. God forbid anybody tell you there's another way. You can't allow that when you're in that place. When you're in the darkness of drug addiction, you don't allow yourself any space to give you a variation of the thought process that helps you just make it through the day. And that's what it comes down to when you're on drugs. You just try to get through your day. You do everything in your power just to not only at points when it got to the point to survive, but to actually, and I'm talking about survival because I had scores of friends that passed away from drug use, congenital heart failure, overdoses, people that were very close to me. You know, it went from a point where I was prescribed pills, OxyContin, back when I had my lung failure about 11 years ago, which is what started my addiction, to something as simple as just taking a pill and being addicted to that. But then it got to a point where I was, you know, pulling rubber ties off of people's arms while they're shooting heroin into their veins. Things that I'd never even fathomed seeing in my life that became so commonplace. And I always felt there was a difference. You know, I felt there was a difference between what I was doing and what other people did, because I never messed with needles, but everyone around me did. But I thought that's what distinguished me as different, you know, from the rest of the culture that I exist in. But you were all feeding the same devil. You know, you're ingesting the same demons, and it's sad the way it takes a hold of some people. You know, some people. I mean, you see them. I mean, you see them out there. There's websites, TikToks. There's all sorts of stuff dedicated to people that are in that world of manic nature. Like you see someone after they've shot up a load of meth and heroin, and the things that they do and the things that come out of their mouth. Well, you guys you've seen YouTube. You know what's going on. What's sad is that's somebody's real life, though. That's somebody. They're in that. They're living that existence. That's the reality of their life. And those are the people that I had around me. That was the craziness that was around me. Like the manic nature of trying to rationalize the drugs and the things that they do to people and what those people do, what we did while on drugs. Looking back, there's no rational way to look at it. Absolutely none at all. You know, and it's sad. It's really tragic because people get hurt. Someone got hurt in the situation. The last one that I got arrested, like I said, I was having to throw people out of my house, and my ex at the time ended up hitting her head on a door jamb. So I was pulling them out of the house. Got a cut, and that's all it takes. That's all it takes is a simple nick to the head. You know, no stitches actually we were had. There's no trips to the hospital, anything crazy like that. But once the police are involved, like that's it. And I can tell you guys honestly, that situation was the most. It was terrible looking back because the opportunity for healing between all the parties that were involved there has been really difficult since. But it was all things that led up to that. But everything that came from that, though, I couldn't thank anything more. I remember the deputy that was taking me to jail. I'm in the car, and he pulled over. He pulled over on the side of the road for like a half hour, and just turned around and was like, "What are you doing, man? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Like, I know you enough to know that this is not who you are, but this will kill you. Like, this could be the end if you don't allow yourself the room to change, man. You have to." And I broke down. I remember breaking down in the back of a squad car in a hot August day, and with a deputy just leaning back and like taking the time to really say, "Hey, man, like even I see this. Like you're definitely not a foreigner when it comes to the law out here. You're on the radar in a big way." I was in and out of jail for every petty thing you can imagine. I mean, really, driving on suspended, petty theft. It was to a point, like it says in the, and this was a sad moment for me. When I was in the, I had to steal dog food. Remember, but more than that, I was in what ended up being a stolen vehicle, stealing dog food because I couldn't afford to feed my animal. You know, I didn't have enough food to even share, but I knew I needed to feed him. So I stole dog food. I remember getting in the car, and I'm not even kidding. Like legitimately, I sat down and looked over at my dog, and it was like everything in the world that could ever give you like disappointed looks was looking at me at the exact same moment. And that was it. I broke down. I remember going to my mom's and telling her finally, like, I can't even feed my dog, you know, and I ended up in jail actually shortly thereafter for suspicion of a stolen vehicle. Luckily, things didn't go that route, or I'd have had a, you know, Grand Theft Auto on my charges as well. But it was a sad time, you know. And like I said, it took me into a place where one drug turned into another, and that turned into another, and then it turned into all drugs, and all people of the drug culture, you know, became a part of my life. I ended up homeless for a while. in that picture and I'll probably pull it up again. You guys can see just how rough I look, man. Like dirty, like not just homeless. Like it'd be great if I had a place to stay tonight, but like curled up behind a garbage can at points homeless. I slept on the top of a Boston Carver sandwich shop for a while because it was warm underneath the ductwork. I could climb up the ladder in the back behind the dumpsters, and I was able to get in and just lay down under there. Kept my clothes in the trunk of a car of a guy that had, some broke down, fixer upper. Kept my clothes in the back of a car, and I would go and try to change when I could, but there was, it's a matter of actually being able to do that. And then, I mean, having to get to a point where you're on the hustle trying to get food, like food cards and trying to exchange those and get people that were willing to, you know, um, trading drugs for food cards and everything else that goes into it, man. It was a terrible life. It was a terrible life at the time. But I look back at those times and I appreciate more ever than I possibly could have the man that lived through that. And I owe him a debt of, oh, I owe that guy the, the biggest debt of gratitude because he was able to survive a life that I don't know if I've been able to. And he got through it, you know, somehow, through the grace of God and through grit and determination, found his way through all of that addiction, through the homelessness, through the arrests, through jail, through it all, and was able to put this guy in the seat that I'm in right now with all of you right here, talking through my best existence that I've ever had, like living my best life in the most comprehension of the joy that I have today, the structure that I have with my family, with my friends, with the community that we have right here, with the world around me is beautiful. Without a doubt, that's the most uplifting thing that I could possibly ask for. But it wouldn't have happened. I can guarantee you that had I not gone through what I went through, had I not lived that life, had I not survived the drug addiction, had I not had that tragic event that happened at my house, was and an assault that took me to prison, had I not gone through that in all rare form, I never would have been able to do what I'm doing today. I would never be able to sit here today collectively with the level of empathy that I have for other people that are struggling through addiction, other people that are struggling with suicidal tendencies, which I definitely was. When I first got arrested, I was in such a manic state of detox that I tried to kill myself in jail. Ended up being rushed to the hospital and spent the next 2 weeks just trying to figure out where I was even at. But those are things that had to happen for me to appreciate what I have and who I have. And that's a big deal, man. Like, it's not just what you've got. People look at so much time spent, especially we're moving into the holidays right now with Christmas coming up, about the possessions that we have. When really the person sitting next to you or in front of you, those are the real assets. Those are the things that you should cherish and hold on to because those are the things that'll come with you after everything's said and gone. I lost everything I owned, literally everything I owned, journals, shoes, I mean, everything in between. Even my dog, I lost it all. When I got out of the joint, and I'll tell you this, when I got out of the joint, I had to trade 2 bags of coffee that I won in a handball tournament with one of the shot callers from a Southside Mexican prison game, the Sureños, a guy named Pato, who was my handball tournament. I had to trade 2 bags of coffee that we won in a tournament so I could have a pair of pants to leave the joint with. Otherwise, I'd have to go out in the gray jumpsuit that you're wearing, looking at every bit as much a criminal as I did the day I walked in. And, it's a heavy topic, but there's so many stories that I could tell you about the people that I met in that I could get into the details of all of the amazing things that I learned in my incarceration, the depth and magnitude that you find in the reform. And I've said this before, if you don't think people can change, if you don't think the world is without the ability to grow, adapt, and become better, ask someone who's going through recovery. Ask anybody that's ever had to deal with addiction, that's fighting that fight. Ask them to tell their story. You'll figure it out real quick. People can change. You can change everything about you except for your name. And that name will follow you, though. And unfortunately, along with that name comes all of that past because it's associated with that government name, right? And people want to deep dive and they want to spend a lot of time digging into people's past and trying to defame and debunk and tear apart the person that they are today when it's because they haven't taken the time to really get to know the person that they're talking about. You know what I mean? And that I think is tough because even in this world we live in here, is difficult because it's almost like the world of social media feels like you owe them a debt of redemption. Like you need to find your grace through their forgiveness and their acceptance and their understanding. I don't mean you guys, I mean everybody else. because all of y'all are amazing. But that's not it. And I found my grace and my salvation through God, not through the internets, the interwebs. But unfortunately, because of who I am and where I'm at, and the fact that there is a platform here that hundreds of thousands of people see and millions of people have seen over the course of the last 2 years, I have to talk about these things because it's important. It's important that you know the integrity of the individual sitting in front of you, and I want you to know that. And I want you to feel comfortable knowing that yeah, I'm 100% the man I am today. And you'll know that if you watch. You'll know. I know my confidence, my circle, the people that I spend my time with, and everyone that I get a chance to meet, they get a chance to know that. When you shake a hand, you're shaking a real person's hand, and the questions you ask are going to get real answers, real honest answers, and that's important to ask those questions. But I feel it's important to address a lot of the issues that people are dealing with right now. Like I said, I'm at a point now where I realize that people might assume that you owe them an explanation for your life. It's not the facts at all, not the case at all. And I see even in some comments that people feel the need, to dig in. But you don't owe anybody anything. Your life is your life. It's between you and the people that you choose to be a part of. But like I said, there's definitely a place that I live in now. You know what I mean? In my headspace that I feel like, I've had to revisit some things, and it really brought up, it brought up a lot of thoughts of my past. And it's just interesting that for me personally, like the second that you start revisiting those places will kind of meet you in the middle. They'll kind of come and meet you somewhere in the middle. And like I said, while I was even, sitting down, getting ready to do this, I got that call from John, and we're looking to get him away from the city that he's in right now. And we've been working together since the day we got out. I adopted John while we were in the joint into my family. He became a brother in there. And we've been as tight as you could possibly be. And I hold myself to a high level of accountability for John and for my mother and for my family, my sister, my brother, all these other people, all of you, because I know that for me personally, like that gives me the strength and the willpower and the drive to maintain my sobriety, to keep pushing forward, to keep looking to fill that last little line that I wrote on the wall in prison, which was change lives. And I can't do that effectively if you understand that I've changed mine, and then you're able to do it. You all have the ability to do amazing things. And I'm not just saying that because I want to be someone, on a stage that's giving you some kind of, prepaid pep talk. What we have right now is the reality of life. We exist through the efforts of our character, and that's, I believe, wholeheartedly is 100% who I am in front of you. When I got out, I wrote another note. And I wrote it on my bedroom door. I left it on my bedroom door for a long time. There's two quotes, one from Nelson Mandela, who I read tons of Nelson Mandela's writings while I was incarcerated, which beautiful human being. If you ever want to find yourself uplifted and look at somebody who was incarcerated for decades and then became the president of Africa, like there's these things that people can do that they have to go through in order to be the person that they are. But one of the quotes that I had up was, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's not our darkness and that most scares us, but our light. And I'll let you look up the rest because it's a beautiful quote. But I kept that on my door. And then just below it, in a note that was below it, a little bit bigger than that quote, said, make mom smile. And it was really simple, but it was just make mom smile. Because I knew that if I could make my mother smile, that I'd be doing right. And that was the things that carried me through, was that unrelenting, unshaken, fully undeserved love that I got from my mother, who sat beside me through countless situations, held my hand through times when I was breaking down, supported and loved me in places where nobody else could, where I didn't even love myself, was subtle and soft and delicate in all the ways that somebody needs to be to help you get to a place where you can really make the change you need to make. Because make no mistake, you can't force someone to just stop being who they are. They need to make that choice on their own. And when they're on drugs and they're living a life that is corrosive, damaging, and dangerous, a lot of times you can't tell them anything because it's a very different life than the one of the social norms. I had the drug world figured out. So to tell me that the drugs weren't okay and that I could do different and do better wouldn't have happened. wouldn't have happened because you couldn't talk to me about drugs because that was my world. I lived in that place. But my mother, like I said, make mom happy. She loved me through it all. She carried a you know a warm place for me and had a candle lit in a window for me, no matter how far I went, and it's always been there. And those are the things that I really find are wildly important. Is that we remember that there's people out there that love you. Like I said, and I've said this about cases in the court case that we've been looking at. Um, we're talking about people that out with the Rittenhouse case and everything. And I've said it and I got villainized for it. People like, how dare you even speak any kind of, speak of anybody without, absolute venom. We're talking about people like Rosenbaum and some other people. But what I said specifically was before he died that night in Kenosha, he has a mother and family that lost him already. He was already in another place. So looking past him at the other people that are directly affected by his life, people that were connected to him. And like if you see that picture in there, like I was a little kid once too. I mean, we all were, playing little league baseball, little Babe Ruth, not a care in the world, just living that normal little kid life. And then in that picture transition, you'll see it goes from that to me being homeless, and then that's not obviously a direct jump. I didn't go from little league to smoking drugs and living behind a Boston Carver. But then you get to where we're at now, But along the lines of that, I hurt a lot of people in my drug addiction, and I've had to rebuild all the relationships in my life, all of them. Not as much with my mother because she didn't go anywhere, but with everyone else, my sister, my brother, my closest friends, family, people who just felt that I was lost, that I was gone, and there would be no coming back. People that told my mother that that was just it. That's it. He's gone. You're gonna have to make some exceptions to your thought process here, Linda. Like your son's not coming back. Rest in peace, my dad. But we lost my dad to the same thing. And at one point I had to make that choice, that realization that he probably wasn't coming back. That at one point he was just too far gone, and then he kept going, and eventually that's where it took him. And what's funny is as I'm saying this, my phone's ringing, and it's my best friend since I'm 10 years old who's calling, who told me the second I got out of jail. Emil said flat out, it was like, two things need to happen. You need to keep your circle as tight as possible and as small as humanly possible, and always show up. Don't ever miss an appointment. Don't ever show up late for me. Always show up. Be there no matter what. 100% transparency. Always show up. And those are some promises that I had to make. Those are some promises I had to make to him, to my family, to myself, that I was going to show up. I was going to show up for me. I was going to live a life for me that was going to distinguish me as someone different than the past that brought me to where I was at. And you got to work through it, man. You got to work through it because there's so many things that'll happen that'll hold you down and keep you held back if you allow it to. There's so many negative adversaries that are out there that are just looking to stifle your voice. They're looking to diminish your light, and you can't let it happen, but it's hard not to when you already have a negative self-image. When you feel like you're fighting an uphill battle, the thought of ice skating uphill then actually hitting the summit is pretty much impossible. You're just doing what you can. And if you can't see me, that's all right. You can listen to me for a minute, and we'll jump back in here. We're back up here. All right. Yeah, it froze. Okay, we should be back up. I think we're good now, right? We had a little bit of a snafu with our data connection here. But yeah, but through all that, you guys, through all of the things we go through, there is a dehumanizing that happens. We stop looking at people with addiction as humans. We stop looking at people with mental health disorders as human. And I talk about this a lot. We dehumanize people through all of our political views, philosophical views, religious views. And that's where that, we have to spend more time, with addressing the fact that, like, it's easy to dehumanize someone and deal with them accordingly, but I think that it's more symptomatic of us not dealing with ourselves, not appreciating and accepting that, like, your life is shaped and cultivated and sculpted by your experience. The things you go through, good and bad, good and bad. It's not one thing or the other. It's good and bad. There's direct cause and effect in our existence, right? But there's an accountability factor, right? And if you own that, we talked about this the other day. If you can own things in your life, be accountable for everything. You take power over them. You're not going to allow them to control you anymore. I had to do that with my past. I had to spend a lot of time accepting my mistakes and the things that I did wrong. Like I said, I had to accept, my jacket, if you will, which is what you call like your criminal record, and appreciate that it wasn't just mine anymore. The world can do with it what they will. They can pick you apart. They can, demonstrify you or turn you into some kind of villain in your life. But that's for them to do. It's not for you to hold on to, because again, you don't owe anybody unless it's a direct cause and effect type situation. The mass public, you don't owe them, people at your job or anything, an explanation for the life you live. Like, it's up to you to live it. You're going to keep living it no matter what, whether you're working that place, hanging out with those people or not. You still got to keep going through it, no matter what the comments say here, no matter what the speculations might be. I got to keep living my life. I just got to keep doing the best I can do regardless, and know that I've had to go through what I went through to get to where I'm at. And I like where I'm at. I'm happy where I'm at. I feel good being where I'm at, being here with y'all, and knowing that we have a chance to have a platform here. Even just having a handful of hundreds of people in here just listening to me talk about this means a lot. And I know it's not what we typically tune in for, and a lot of folks are really, you'll see the numbers spike. If I was standing in front of a police siren and or if there was any loud noises happening, those numbers would quadruple in a heartbeat. But it's not always about that. It's about the stuff that happens that makes those things in the streets take place. A lot of the crime that we're looking at, and a lot of the root cause of a lot of those things, which is what we're looking to move past, right? We're looking to move past just treating the symptoms, right? And I think that is a big deal too, because that's what happened for me, which got me started in my drug addiction, was they tried to treat my symptoms. I went in with H1N1 back when that was the epidemic, swine flu. I went in and I'm in the hospital for a couple of weeks. We might even have a picture that we can pull up, which will be interesting. Because I went in super healthy, like best shape of my life, super fit. I lost like 35, 40 pounds in the hospital. I was in there for like 2 weeks. They had chest tubes in my back. They were pumping out fluid on a really tight monitor. My oxygen saturation level dropped radically. If I took my mask off, I was 100% oxygen. I'd take it off, I'd pass out while I was eating a muffin. And it was terrible. And when I got out of the hospital finally, which was a surprise to a lot of people, because there was definitely a big moment there where we weren't sure. And my pulmonologist sent me to a pain specialist, said, hey man, you need to go talk to these people. They'll help you with the pleurisy in your lungs, which is scar tissue that I had from all of the trauma to my lungs. So I go into this guy, and this particular individual has since lost their license. They are without the ability to practice medicine with any pain mitigation. I think at that point they lost it, and I think they've lost their medical license completely after this point, with all the things that came out of it. Much like a lot of the big pharmas that have lost their ability to even operate within the pain management world because of all of the well, you can jump into that's a whole other segment about how big pharma has done a lot to really feed us a bunch of lies about like the misdiagnosed pain that needs to be treated. When you have places, people like Purdue and whatnot, that were making Oxycontin, and Janssen with fentanyl, and all these things that have led to the massive amounts of deaths from overdoses in the United States. 100,000 overdoses a year right now. And again, like I said the other night, those are preventable deaths, guys. Those are all preventable deaths. But I went to this pain specialist, and instead of taking the time to figure out what we can do, breathing exercises and whatever else might have come up, it was a quick diagnosis that you just need Oxycontin. We're going to put you on that. And when I went back in after a couple of months saying, hey, I still have chest pain, he's like, well, we'll just double your dose and send you out the door. And I was hooked and done. That was it. It was the beginning of a handful of years, 7-8 years of drug addiction. Just terrible. And so I see people going through that, and it's just like, man, what can we do to help get them out? And there are resources. There's definitely resources that are available out here. One of those. One of those right here, I'm going to put up in the comments is the findtreatment.gov. This is an international or a national organization right here. It's .gov, but it's on a national scale. So if you're looking for any services or treatments, and we'll go into the PSA aspect of this later, but this is definitely one that people can call, and you can find information about how you can get the services you might need if you're dealing with addiction or someone that has addiction. One of the resources you can get into here. But I definitely got to a point in my life through that where I realized like this is going to kill me, and I kind of like just gave into that. I just gave into the thought that this is my life now, and this is where it's going to go. This is where it's going to end somehow in this, this house that I was, squatting in with all these other drug addicts, like where my life was gonna. That was the apex of my existence at that point. And my co-host is fighting with his partner. Oh, Wendy. But I'd given into it, man. I'd allowed myself to believe that was all there was for me. And I can tell you right now, when I was incarcerated, I started praying a lot. I was trying to deep meaning as to why I was there and what happened. And I prayed. I found myself praying. And Susie, I'm really sorry to hear that, man. It's terrible. Sorry about the loss of your son, Mary, your brother, Susie. That's terrible. And that kind of plays into what you're talking about there, the people that are lost, because there's no one there to support what they're trying to accomplish. Not that you weren't, but I'm saying in so many cases, there's situations where a lot of people feel alone and they don't know, especially with COVID, the way it's been. I'm not going to jump into all that, but there's been such an isolation factor where people that would go to face-to-face meetings, you're going to your NA, your AA, and you have someone right there, a sponsor, and people that are helping keep you accountable every day. And they're saying, just sit at home and do it on Zoom. The relapse rate is enormous. I mean, it's the highest it's ever been. Like I said, the overdose-related deaths now highest it's ever been. And we can get into facts on that one if you guys want to dig deeper. Like I said, it's almost 100,000 deaths that come from drug overdoses. But I was in and I prayed, and I found myself in a situation where I got an answer, and it wasn't what I wanted or what I thought I was going to get. The answer I got when I said, "Hey God, why am I going through this? Why me? I was living a good life. I was doing things right. I'm a good man. How did I end up here?" And the only answer I got, and for all those that aren't religious, but was because you can. What do you mean because I can? If I'm going through this because I can, I don't like that. I'm not good with that. I don't accept it. And so I kind of went back for a second opinion, if you will, from God. Never really got it, but but it came in the answer via the way of this guy John, my brother, and that was a real answer to a prayer, because we found each other in this place and we were able to take a connection and some commitments to each other. But I realized that I was able to go through what I went through because I was strong enough to get through it. And I only was able to do that because it was my job to help other people that might not have the strength to get through, so they can make it well. And we all need at a point in our life someone to help pick us up and carry us. And you see the footprints, that verse, and you see those, and that's the facts of life. Sometimes you have to be the person to carry somebody. They need to lean on you heavy because they aren't strong enough to do it on their own. And I realized in that time, the answer that I got was actually two-part. It was in prayer there, and then we got an award movie while we were in lockup. An award movie for no one getting stabbed or cut or whatever for the week. And so they gave us a movie, and the movie was Doctor Strange. And I remember watching that, and so loud, and you've got 20 guys, and there's rowdy individuals that are let out of a cell, and you're able to be in this room and watching a movie, which is crazy because all you have are just garbage books to read for the most part. But it came to a point in the movie where Doctor Strange is on the balcony. He's talking to the guru. That I can't remember the details of the movie around this point because this was so relevant to my existence. But she was passing on the she was saying, "Hey, it's your turn now. You need to take it and go with it. It's up to you now." And he said, "This isn't my life. This is yours." And she said, "Well, it's not about you." And then it clicked. I was like, "Oh, I get it now. I went through this because I can. Because this isn't all about me anymore. Like what I did got me to where I'm at, and God saved me and took me to a place where I was able to get out of it. Like I'm over 4 years sober now, and that's a huge deal. And I'm at a place now where I can comfortably say that the life I endured and got through has made me the best version of myself that I could possibly be today. And so I go through that, and I realize that I'm just in a place where we all have to help each other. We as a community in the world here, and do what we can to help each other out. Reach out to somebody that's going through it. If they're dealing with addiction, just be a shoulder for them. Be a sounding board. If they're dealing with suicidal thoughts, do a little research, help get them in the right direction, help talk with them. Keep your phone on. You know what I mean? It might be a 3 a.m. call that you need to answer just to help kind of talk them down. And I've done that many a time. If they've got a situation that they're living in that's dangerous, help them find a resource. Put them in touch. Which is something we can all do. We all have that opportunity, to be somebody's confidant, to be someone's strength, to be somebody's safe harbor, if you will. Because I know I wasn't for a long time. I wasn't. I was to be safe. I was the rocky shores that the ships went into and got scuttled, if you will. I think it's a proper nautical term. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, I was that place. And like I said, people got hurt in the wake of my existence. I was involved in drugs, and people got drugs from me. I got drugs from people. We fed off of each other's addictions and the things that go along in the world of drug use, guys. You can watch as many documentaries as you want, but you'll never fully comprehend and understand just how chaotic and insane inside that the eye of that tornado of drug use really is. Like there's no reality in there. It's like Stranger Things, it's like the Upside Down, like it's like that. It's just this weird universe of undefinables, and there's no rational thought. I mean, the things people say, the things people do, it doesn't make sense. None of it's really coherent, because it all comes down to one need, one drive, one singular purpose, which is to get the drugs you need so that you don't feel like you're dying. And that's really what it comes to. Feel like you're dying. That detox moment, your body feels like it's shutting down on you, and it's kind of terrifying, And but I know a lot of us have lost people along the way, having not pulling that is a big deal. No, hop in here, talk with us. You're good. Come on in. Let's chat. I got my sister actually in studio as well. We were gonna have her come in and say hello. What's up, Sham?
Hey, CJ, can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Just fine, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good.
We were thanks for
jumping in. No, I was just listening to you, and I was thinking about like, how do you get from a place of addiction and being in prison and having, like you were talking about, you got to a point where, like, anyone who knows you knows that, like, you would never hit a woman. Like, our mom would kick your butt if you did, first of all. And it's not who you are, but you were at a place in your life where your reputation was so bad that no one was going to listen to you or believe you anyway, right? So how do you get to a place where your reputation is trashed? Anyone can make any claims against you they want. You're in prison. How do you move from that place forward? How do you elevate your life at that point? Like, realistically, what steps need to be taken to move you forward a little bit?
Well, that's kind of like the $1 million question, really. And I know that you would probably know more, about what I had to go through, because I had to rebuild the relationship that we have in a big way. And because we didn't speak for years, like you had to write me off completely as well, because you knew that what I had to say had zero credibility. There was nothing I could say that you could trust really at that point, because it just came from a place of selfish intent, you know?
Yeah.
So the thing about that too is when you get debased to a point where like nothing you say matters, like people can throw whatever shade on you they want, and it's 100% accepted because, you know, what are they looking at? You know, they're looking at this broken shell of a human being that's just a drug addict, you know, like, oh, what relevancy do you have in life? And so when that's the equation that you're dealing with, yeah, like people can, you know, I looked at that through a lot of the, you know, court paperwork and stuff. I look back, any story can be told. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's interesting. Is not even mine was brought into the equation in that last arrest that I had, like what actually happened, but it didn't really matter because it really wouldn't have mattered because no one's going to listen. And so you have to work really hard to just keep moving forward. And doing the next right thing is something you'll hear. It's a term you hear a lot. Do the next right thing, and just continually take these steps towards proving that you can be trusted, proving that you have real good intention, and that you have credibility. You know, and showcasing your character through the actions of your life. And that's where a lot of what we do here. Um, a lot of what we do here is a big deal. And even in like comments, like we were saying here, like
Yeah.
it can be said that that's what happened, but as the details might be laid out, that's not how it worked out. You know, it would just like I said, our mother would demolish me if
Kick
that
your
was the
butt.
case.
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
Right.
CJ had an older sister and a mother who were both we're Irish, we're pretty strong, but yeah, when I remember, I mean, I don't really think honestly that it's anyone's. I don't think that anyone should have access to everyone's personal history. And like, you know, the thing is, we all have gone through things that are our private demons, like the things that haunt us when we close our eyes, the things you think about when you lay in bed at night.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that everyone has access to that piece. I don't think they should.
Mm.
I don't think that's the reality of the situation we're living in. But when I heard that there was a domestic violence charge against CJ, my mom and I were kind of like, okay, that I mean,
Right.
we know his character well enough that that isn't something
Right.
that could exist in reality. So it's just interesting that
What did you do with
that's a
that
sticking
when
point.
you and like when you and mom like heard that? Like what was it? How did you feel? Like what was it
Well,
like for
the
you
thing is,
guys?
we understood a lot better the situation, the environment that you had been in, which
Mm.
was, I mean, to get really real about it, you surrounded yourself by people that um, you were living in chaos and crime. And so when we heard that you had been arrested, that you were, you know, charges were pending against you, that wasn't a surprise. That was the
Right.
company we're keeping.
Right.
And a part of us, I mean, a part of it was like, well, obviously something went down, but I mean, anyone who knows CJ at all, um, he, I don't. It's just because he should have been arrested. He should have been arrested for so many other things. Like he did so
Man, ain't
much
that the
bad
truth?
stuff, like drugs, violence, guns. I mean, I'm not going to list it because those are his little things. But CJ never hit a woman ever in his life.
All right.
I can tell you something. He and I can get into it. Like we're pretty feisty with each other sometimes, right? Like I've wanted to clock him in his big old nose many times. Like that's my dogs. He never has
Wow.
pushed me, shoved me, knocked me out of the way, nothing. So the fact that that was the thing that he got arrested on is almost honestly, it's almost more insulting than anything else because he kind of deserved a bunch of other he should have been arrested for other things. And his integrity would say, like anyone who knew him, if I could ask for a show of hands, who's ever seen CJ be at all openly violent towards any particular person, but particularly against women. But the fact that that line he's never crossed, would never cross, is the thing that he had to sit in handcuffs over is kind of like you have to have a come to Jesus at that moment. Like if
Well,
everything is
yeah, for
stripped.
me, yeah. I mean, moving right
Sorry, I
in. I
totally went
mean,
on there,
yeah.
but yeah,
I
I mean,
mean,
you had to be stripped of everything to lose all sense of ego, all sense of self, of the right to maintain the space of darkness that you've been living in, to have everything taken. I mean, I've dealt with addicts my whole life. Like, I don't personally have an addiction. I've never had a drug addiction, but like CJ said, our father was a prescription drug addict, and CJ was a drug addict for a long time. And I understand, and in that world, I've seen other people in that world a lot. And you get to this, you have to come to a particular point where you are literally stripped bare, you're flayed alive to the bone. And I think that, honestly, I think that's the point where you had to be before you started seeing what comes next for yourself.
Right. But I mean, and to address what you're talking about, I mean, we need to be very real about it though. Like you never know what could happen. Like people when they're on drugs
Yeah.
do crazy things. And I know that like in the situation that got me arrested, the last one, like I said, I was arrested multiple times, guys. This is not a one-time thing.
Yeah.
But when that happened, that's not how it played out. But I realized looking back, and I didn't even really read over a lot of it till lately. And I was like, it didn't matter how anyone else wanted to paint that picture.
Yeah.
Like what happened. Someone, an argument took place. I was throwing people out of my house, and while I was pulling people out of my house, someone hit their head. And then that's all it took. Like I said, no one went to the hospital. There was no no weapons involved, nothing crazy like that. That's all it was. And
yeah.
But not to diminish the reality of what it was, but that's what it was. But by the letter of the law, that's all it takes. It doesn't take much. That you guys got to be careful. And when you think about this, it doesn't take much to catch a charge. Really, it doesn't. Like, it's incredibly easy for the law or for law enforcement to look at you and say, you know what, I feel like what you're doing is illegal, or whatever might happen, and to catch a charge. And then you're left at the mercy of trying to like defend that. At the point where all that went down, like it didn't really even click that like I needed to defend myself, because I knew that it was that moment that needed to happen. Like I needed to get sober. I had to. Mm-hmm. Like I was in a household of people that were dying all around me. And I don't mean like literally no one died in my home, but people were actively engaged in like intravenous drug use. I mean? I carried, like I said, Narcan with me everywhere I went, because I didn't know if like my ex-girlfriend at the time or my girlfriend at the time was going to wake up. Like I didn't know. There was a fear when I woke up, if she was in a deep sleep, like, all right, make sure she's actually still breathing type thing. Our mother was afraid of that. She was afraid that she was going to make a call and I wouldn't pick
we all
up.
were. If the phone rang in the
moment where I just.
Yeah. If the phone rang in the middle of the night, every single one of us were like, please God, don't let it be CJ. Don't let it be someone telling us that CJ is dead in a ditch in jail.
But Right. But that was never that wasn't what came down to like that moment. You know what I mean? And like, the ex and I, like we were both in like a manic state, but like not manic state, but I know that after you see somebody like inject like heroin and methamphetamines, like the things that people do on those drugs, and when you put those together and then shoot them into your veins, like you see, like, you can't even really describe what happens. People morph. Like you see their facial expressions and everything about their body language changes, and they become this other human being.
And I don't think that people become other.
That's what it came down to for me, was watching that happen. Well, now let me. I don't want to walk past it, because it's the truth of what happened. I mean, how it happened was a big deal, because that was the scary moment when you're like, all right, well, this needs to, this is a scary moment for anybody when you're watching that, for anybody.
But do you think your character changes? I mean, don't you feel like your base character is your base character at all times? Or, I mean, I've never been on drugs to that level. So can drugs make you an entirely different person?
No, I think at your core, like there's the core thing. Like I was never out like robbing houses or, like robbing people or anything like that. Like you have a certain, I think, base ethos that you kind of have in life, that carries through. But there are moments when you waver from that, and that's when you have those, like, it's even worse than when you're dealing with the addiction, because then you have to deal with the thought that you now like compromise another level of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like when you go into like stealing things from like stores and stuff, like I said, I was even down to the point where I was stealing dog food. But you get to that point and you're kind of like, all right, well, this is maybe the new accepted norm. But I don't think it ever happens. Like Mom, I remember once we were younger, she gave an analogy, like it's a Native American analogy. And they say that your heart is a triangle in your chest. And every time you make a mistake or you do something wrong, or, hurt somebody, whatever it might be, that turns a little bit. And that's the pain you feel. That's like the regret and remorse that you feel. And you have to do your efforts to repair that, repair that rift, repair that rift. And then it moves a little further. And it moves a little further if you don't. no longer feel that anymore. And that's you kind of taking that next level, that next step of acceptance that it's the way it is. It's the way it's going to be, and points, you get these kind of like recalibration moments, when you're going through drug addiction, you get these recalibration points. And a lot of times it's just when you get like those little lockup moments when you're like a day or two in jail or whatever it is, and you're going through withdrawals and you're like, all right, I need to make a change here. I need to make a change. And
so you and I were talking. I was gonna say you and I were talking earlier about. You're lagging a little bit. Am I lagging also?
You're lagging and you're leaning on your microphone, whatever that is.
Oh, I was like, see, on my side, it looks like you're lagging. You guys, is he lagging on anybody else? Because you were frozen for a little while there. I don't know if it's my side or yours. I closed down a bunch of stuff, but
could just be the studio. I don't know. Maybe
not. We were talking earlier about this, and we were setting up for this broadcast. We're talking about it. You had kind of brought out a couple of points that were, I don't know, I thought really poignant about how you need to, you said it on your broadcast earlier too, about embracing your choices, embracing where you're at. Earlier, you had said that you have to like take the pieces of yourself that you want to bring forward into your future and then leave the other pieces behind, right? Yeah. Like I said, if you basically when, like for me, I hit the wall at 1,000 miles per hour. When I hit the wall, like I realized that it was almost like a blessing because I was able then to stop and look at the pieces around me, and I was able to choose which ones I wanted to carry with me anymore. And it shattered that shell that I had built around myself. It broke that mold for me, and the mold that I had created was one of just a drug addict, And when it came down to it, I was able to then rebuild it. And I was able to take the healthy tools and the healthy aspects of that was left in there, because you're never entirely not yourself. There's always, even in the rubble of it all, there's going to be the pieces of you that the core that binds you. You know what I mean? But there's all those things that glom on around you that make you this outside appearance, that the public's perception of you. And then that becomes, and then again, you guys remember, perception becomes reality. And that's a big point in all this, like all it takes for somebody to say something or spin a story or, make some false accusations, and people just decide that that's the truth and the reality of it. And I deal with it all the time. The whole Proud Boy thing and all this other craziness. All people have to do is hear somebody say something, and then that's gospel to them. But that's, I think, the hallmark of someone who either A, isn't willing to learn and listen, or B, somebody that's not able to, And in all fairness, like, you got to stop trying to convince everybody, because I did. Like, I gave up trying to like make sure everybody, knew and loved me for everything that is wonderful and great about me, because that's not who I am. Like, I tell people all the time, like, if you're trying to take political cues from me, you've got bigger issues. Like, if you're taking world cues for how to live the perfect life from me, you're definitely looking in the wrong place. Like, I can tell you exactly what not to do. I could give you great tutorials on how to screw things up and how to learn from them, but you have some little nuggets. At the end of the day, walk away. Yeah, I do, but really, at the end of the day, walk away. Some of them out there. One of my favorites. I don't know if you and I were talking about this. I don't know where we heard it, but like, be 1% better today than you were yesterday in any particular area of your life. Yep. Yeah, 1% is still better than it was. One little step. And eventually, yeah. And think about it. You know what I mean? 100 days from there, you're 100% better, right? Just 1%. Keep doing the math on that. You're 100% better than you. And that's been my mantra, man, for a long time. Is that, I'm better today than I was yesterday, and I'll be better tomorrow than I am today. And I keep, and the times of my darkness, I've had to remind myself of that. Like, just keep pushing, man. Keep growing, keep learning, adapting, keep incorporating all the lessons that you learned. You know what I mean? I learned a big lesson back there when I got arrested that day. When I got arrested that day, like, I learned the biggest lesson was just walk away. Like, you can't. It is, and you feel like you can get through them. Like, I wish that day I would have just walked away, instead of trying to make people like get out of my house and going through like the physical altercation of like dealing with this big, domestic situation that I was in. I should have just walked away. I wish that I would have been able to, at that point, if I'd have been strong enough and able to, if I'd have been able to just walk away from all of it, like everything. If I could have walked away from the drugs, my codependency, my horrible sense of self, my insecurities, if I could have walked away from all of the things that help keep you
like rooted in your addiction that day, then I'd probably be where I am today, but without the life experience, right? And then who's to say? But we can't do that. We can't the what ifs of it all. You know what I mean? We can't do that. And I realized that through my life, um, what if I hadn't? What if I would have? Doesn't matter. I know who I am today. The character of the human being in front of you today that I sit with every day, that I go to bed with at night, and and the guy who folds his hands in front of God every day, like I know who he is. And it'd be great if everyone else was able to see that without question. But no matter what people are going to question, there's always going to be that I wonder moment, even in the closest circles that you have. But at some point, you just stop questioning it because it's not relevant anymore. Because that was then, and this is now. But yeah, I wish that I'd have walked away. I wish that I wouldn't have tried to like pull people out of my house. I wish that I wouldn't have had a situation where anybody like bumped their head. You know what I mean? But that
Is
was
that something you struggled with outside of that? I mean, what did you learn from that particular, like walking away from something that isn't good for you? Is that something that is, or is that something that you've worked with or struggled with before also?
I don't. I think that there is a certain amount of obsession or obsessive nature that goes into people's lives, and I think I always kind of had that. Um, it's something that I think is it kind of carries through, and what drugs do. They super exploit any little fracture you have in your processes, right? Like any little thing that you have going, um, it exploits that. It takes the little fissures in your brain and it blows them wide open. So if you have a, a predilection to, if that's the right word,
It is, yeah.
okay, predilection to doing like to being super talkative, one thing. But if you have one for like, being, I don't know, whatever it might be, and we can go into like there's a lot of neurosis that comes into that. And if you have something there, it exploits that in the worst way, and it amplifies that, and that becomes like the loudest voice in you. And then that happens inside, and it makes its way to the outside. And that's what's really scary, is that you don't know it's happening because it's exploiting things in you that you didn't know were fractured. But we all are. And that's the thing that we need to keep addressing, is that like we all have these cracks in us. We're all beautifully broken in some way, shape, or form. We're all an amalgamation of all the things in our life that got us where we're at. But they're pieces of us that have been put together, right? And those pieces come from a lot of times a broken part of us at some point. And we take that and this other part, and we put those together, and we find something that binds those. And the things that I think bind those pieces are the character that you have and the choices you make today that's able to make that cohesion, and we do that. And we continually add these pieces to ourselves to rebuild who we are. And we get to do that every day, but we get to choose the pieces. But when you're in the loss of drugs, you have no idea just how shattered you really are. But in that, you don't even understand that there's things that we deal with, man. There's things that we deal with that we all need. I would love if there was free universal healthcare, would be amazing. If we could all see a therapist, it'd be incredible. Because I think we all need therapy.
And that's, the drug addiction is a coping strategy for stuff that was there already. I think that you don't go from being a healthy person to being a drug addict. So you have to not only you have to get over the crutch or the coping mechanism that's, exacerbated everything and, blown your life up. But then you have all that original stuff to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're trying to find
no, I just realized, like, a big shout out to Andrew, who poor cat, doesn't even understand how to use his feet. I'd love to, Andrew. We'll do a segment on addiction recovery, because I know that's something that you advocate for in a big way. And you've done an amazing job of setting a great example for how to do that. And I heard a lot. I went to a drug court graduation just a couple weeks ago before I came out. And one thing that kept coming up, and it's interesting because Drew talks a lot about the league that he plays in, which is a softball league. And that's one of the things people kept bringing up. They're like, man, softball. And I was like, I hate softball because I'm terrible at it. But I was like, man, I should probably play softball. And that's something he said a lot about. But so for other people that are out here on a big social platform that are also like recovered and are fighting that good fight, man, like I tip my hat to you. You know what I mean? Like my boy Andrew and other people that are willing to go ahead and like put it out there, because it's a hard thing to do, to talk about it. You guys, like, this is a thing where like I'm opening up my life right now to like the entire world. And by that I mean like the entire world. It's not just like the couple hundred of us in here right now. this will get shared. It'll go where it goes, and eventually it'll be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000. We had some videos from last week that had, almost 400,000 views. People will see this, and it's hard, to be able to talk about who you are, what you've gone through, the things you've done. It's embarrassing. You got to deal with that. It's a little frustrating too, because there's part of me that feels like at points like, you want to be like, it's none of your business. Why should I tell you anything? But I feel like we could do it. I'm maybe more open to the idea that you have to do it different, but that I am this guy. We'll have thousands of people that'll see this, and I think it's important that we tell our story. No matter how hard it is to tell. Maybe if you're not ready to tell it, you shouldn't be forced to. But I feel like right now is a good time to bring that out. And God will call you in places in life that you may not be ready for, but it may be exactly what you need. And I kind of feel like right now, like that's like what the calling was, and the culmination of all these things that are kind of circling around me right now. Like, I don't feel like I was forced into this, but I really feel like it was important to do. You know what I mean? Because we're addressing something that's a part of everybody's lives that we live, that are around us. At some point in time, I don't know anybody that doesn't know someone who's dealt with drug addiction or, domestic violence or some suicidal thoughts. There's those situations are around us at all times, and so it's important that we talk about that and how we can help other people and go through it, and not villainize people for living the life they live, but rather to allow them the space to grow.
I'll be frozen my side. Okay. I don't know if you guys can hear me. CJ is frozen on my side. I'll say, I don't know if he's talking right now or not. It's frozen. There you are.
There you are.
I don't think people understand the amount of strength it takes to even sit in the seat where you're at and say the things you're saying. Because earlier today, CJ and I were talking about, doing a broadcast, what he's wanted to talk about addiction and recovery and things like that for a long time. It's been on his agenda. And we were talking about his personal history. And as his sister and just as a person who lives as a private citizen, I was like, no one has the right to dig around inside of you. You don't have to share that with anyone. So the fact that he's willing to he understands that it can serve a greater purpose to share these really intimate, difficult things. It takes a lot of freaking courage, because for damn sure, I'm not pulling my journal out and laying it open for everyone to look at. I'm not talking about those things, but I mean, I don't know. I'm proud of you that you're willing to, put it all out there.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it. I mean, I jumped through this a little bit, going into it, because I really do want to focus on what kind of positivity we can put out there. How can we make it? I mean, I really don't try to focus too much of our media platform here on just me. It's what we're doing. We collectively in the community are able to do. And I know that, we'll definitely have links that we're going to put up here for anybody that might have a need for support in any way. Not just the websites, but the phone numbers themselves. It'll be a direct contact. You can make the 800 numbers. But it is difficult. But like I said, and I prayed about it, and I got that answer. I'm going through what I'm going through, and we're all still going through life, because I can, and because it's not about me anymore, and I'm willing to accept that the gritty nature of my story and my past is just that. It's my past. But what can I do today to make the best tomorrows for myself and everyone around me, and let that be the hallmark of my character, and the defining qualities that people look and remember me for, because I'd love to leave a legacy of change. I'd love to know that I've checked that list off the wall in that cell that I lived in for a year. I would love to know that I'm able to look back and have people appreciate that I've put it out there, that I've laid it on the line. And it's hard, because no matter what, man, it's tough. I know most folks in here are with it. They understand, we've all got a little bit of a thing, right? But there's people out there that are just looking for a reason, they want to paint a bad picture of you, because hurt people, and I think that's the sad truth of a lot of what life is right now around us, is that hurt people. Yeah. And so it's like, when they do that, it's because inside of them, there's something that's broken maybe, or something that needs some healing. And so I've really worked hard to just turn the other cheek. I worked really hard to take the high ground and not engage in the mudslinging of it all. And I don't. I don't. Even this was something I was like, I'm good. I'm all right. I'm going to be me. And if you want to ask me questions, ask away. I'll answer them 100% honestly, no problem at all. But through encouragement from a good friend of mine and from my inner circle here, I feel like, yeah, it was important that I sit down and put it out here that I'm 100% human. You know what I mean? We all are.
Yeah.
But me personally, I'm talking for CJ right now, 100% a broken man that found a way to redemption through, the course of incarceration, a lot of prayer and painstaking effort to prove his sobriety and his character to his family and friends. And so that's the guy that I am, and I try to make it clear that I don't ever want to paint myself as anything else. Just I'm having a representation of what I think the world is, which is people just doing the best we can at times, trying to make it to that grand existence, whatever it might be, whatever God you believe in, whatever afterlife you look to. I know they all want you to live the best life you can here. Even if you don't believe in an afterlife, that would give you even more purpose as far as living the best life you can right now, because the only one you got. But I was given a second chance, and through the cause of that incident that took place at my house years ago, I was gifted with a second chance. And so that was one of the things I had to go through, was making reparations and making apologies and just proving that I could do different, do better, and be better. But even through all that, and it's hard because, like I said, like no matter how much you put in, no matter how much time you put in, how hard you work to showcase who you are, it's not going to be how other people see you. People never see you the way you see yourself, and that's a big deal. People need to remember that no one ever views you the way you view yourself.
Yeah.
So and that works on both sides. So if you see yourself as a terrible human being, if you living in a place where like I was, other people don't see you that way. People don't acknowledge, they don't recognize you for the things that are inside your heart that hurt. They see you for the things you are to them and the things that are on the outside of your existence. But you're never the person that you think that people see you as. You know what I mean? You are you 100%. And it is what it is. But it's a nonstop journey. We got to keep pushing in the right direction and doing our best to allow people, like I said, the grace. Do I feel, so some Cassie Cox says, do I feel the domestic charge is a wake up call? In a way, yeah. Looking back now, actually, more than anything, because I think that has like a real stigma to it. People see it like, oh my God, like, that's like a huge red flag. But I think looking at it and understanding that a domestic charge is anyone that has lived with you, lives with you, or currently resides with you, or, there's all these different stipulations. So, and it doesn't take much. Like I said, just walk away, man. Walk away and allow like allow the law enforcement or whatever, let the other powers that be do their job, but walk away. Don't engage in a situation that's going to put you at the detriment. But I don't know if it was really the wake-up call. My wake-up call happened when I woke up in my jail cell after getting brought back from the hospital after trying to kill myself in jail. That was my wake-up call. That was that holy shit moment. I was like, dude, you just like tried to kill yourself in a jail cell. Like where in life did you, how, man? And but I got there, and I made it, and it helped me get to a place where I am today. So yeah, I guess it did kind of yeah, it did wake me up, I guess. Yeah, all of that period of my life did. Yeah. But sorry, I was just kind of trying to make sure that I'm paying attention to comments over here too, without just sorry, going on. No, you're good.
I was going to say too. I saw a comment in there. Let me go back in and pull it up. Actually, I don't think. Never mind. Someone had made a comment about something I was going to address, but it's not really worth. They already deleted it, so it's not really worth bringing it up. You guys, see my face red here. I get a little bit frustrated when people say, like, he's my family member. So when people are saying things that are ridiculous and overtly, if someone's being a hater just to be a hater, go live a good life. Go live a better life, really, because we just don't need that here. So when people are saying stuff, I'm like, oh, let me address that. But I'm going to go ahead and just delete the comment and keep going.
That's really, honestly, that's a prime example of how we have to do it in life. You know what I mean? You just have to accept it. Like it is what it is, man. Like I'm not going to stop being the good person that I am today. You know what I mean? I'm going to keep on grinding. People can say that I'm a horrible human being, but I know better.
Yep.
You know better. People around me know better.
Yep.
So I'm going to let the people that I trust and that I love be the ones that give me a good barometer of who I am, not somebody that has no idea who I am sitting in a den somewhere in Tennessee. You know what I mean? If that's the issue, like if you're armchair quarterbacking me as a human being from the other side of the world, and that is the reach. We have continents far beyond our own, countries all over the place that watch. That's fine, man. Go ahead. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to allow you to have the space in my head, in my heart, in my soul to exist where I'm going to second guess and question who I am because you haven't quite figured it out yet. I would encourage you to watch more. You know what I mean? For those people that Shama's talking about, the haters and whatnot. And I know you got my back. You know what I mean? I can tell you guys seriously, like her ability to actually like rep for me is a big deal because, like I said, that was one of the biggest relationships I had to rebuild. She didn't speak to me for years. Like I didn't see my nieces or my nephew grow up for what, 4 or 5 years, probably. Shama.
It was
a while. I didn't get to see that, you know. And then family gatherings didn't. The day, honestly, I'll tell you this right now. The day I got arrested, that day, I had driven by my mother's house and I was going to drop off my dog. And this is in my hometown. Mind you, my sister lived with her family in another state altogether. I was going to drop off my dog. And I'm sure it was because we had to go find drugs or whatever we had to do in that moment. But as I drove by, I saw a minivan unloading and it was my sister and her family at my mother's house. And I had no idea they were in town. And I realized right then, I was like, I'm not part of this family anymore. Like, so Cassie Cox kind of lead into the question you asked. That was part of the wake up call from that day. And that was earlier in the day. And then I'm pretty sure that was earlier in that day, but it led into where it went. But I realized that like, I wasn't even a part of it anymore. I had fully alienated my family so that even gatherings I wasn't included. And that's like as far as you can go. You can go that far into it where you just have no connection anymore. So our connection, Shama and I, my sister here, who sits here and works with me, regularly, we talk every day now, and she's an incredible asset to CJTV and making all of this work. We had to rebuild all that, I remember the first time I saw you actually was at Grandma's funeral.
No, it was Adam's wedding.
Are you sure?
I remember, absolutely, because I wrote you.
You're right.
Yeah, I wrote you a text because I mean to.
You're welcome. Not you, Sunny D.
No, I was going to say, to put it like in perspective, CJ and I have been close my whole life. He was born and he was kind of my, I don't know, I just took him as my own. He's 3 years younger than I am. We've always been close, but we haven't always had healthy boundaries. I'm the big sister. I don't have boundaries with him. I want to protect him, take care of him, whatever. And cutting him out of my life, like deciding that he had gotten so toxic and I just couldn't anymore. I couldn't worry and be in his world and try to help. And it just, I couldn't do it anymore. And it was like cutting off a limb. Like it was shocking to my family too. When I finally came to the point where I was like, I can't answer his phone calls. He can't be in my life. And there was 4 years. There were 4 very long years that we didn't speak. And we've only been in one another's lives again for 1.5 years. So it hasn't even been a long time, but it was Adam's wedding. Our brother was going to get married, and CJ had only been out of prison for like 5 months, something like that, right? Not even. And I sent him a text that said, look, we're going to see each other. I'm not ready for any kind of, he had tried to reach out a couple times after prison, and I just wasn't I was like, I've heard it all before. I can't, I love you, but I absolutely can't. And I texted him and I said, hey, we're going to see each other at the wedding. Let's just be cordial.
I remember this.
I'm not ready for any big reunion. Like, let's just be people that are relatives that see each other at weddings and funerals. And let's just do that for right now. And I know it was really hurtful and it was hard, but I was like, I can't. And I remember my whole family, we went up on this elevator to go to Adam's groom suite. And the kids and my mom, and it was so awkward because everyone knew we hadn't spoken, and they'd all been like pressuring, and it was just really awkward. And so they got off the elevator and I said, "Oh, wait, you guys, I forgot something down in the lobby. I've got to go down there to grab something." But really, I just like couldn't get off the elevator. Like I knew you were waiting down the hall and I was like, I can't. I just like need another minute. So they left and I went on the elevator and I was like, God, just give me the strength for this moment. Like help me get through just the next couple of minutes. That's all I need. I don't need anything else. Just give me the strength to get off the elevator and go see him for the first time. And I remember it was like an egg got cracked over my head, and like a feeling of warmth just encompassed me. And I knew that God was with me and that his peace and comfort were going to get us both through that. And I remember I walked down the hallway and everyone else had gone into the groom's suite and you were sitting in the doorway. And I just went up and I gave you a hug, and it was just peaceful, right? Like there wasn't any huge, it was awkward still, but I just felt like God really helped us in that moment. And it was hard rebuilding. I don't know if any of you have ever had a close relationship with an addict before. It's really hard. And it doesn't, it's hard too because you think it's going to get better and it doesn't. And then you think it's going to get better and you trust them and you believe them, and then it goes the other direction. And so it's hard not to lose yourself in an addict. So if anyone is we did Al-Anon together as a family. And I've seen a lot of comments where people are like, what do you do if you want to help someone who doesn't want to be helped yet? And I know CJ's experienced both sides of it. I don't know what to say to that. I mean, what would you say to that, CJ? If someone is, we've seen the comment a couple of times that, people have people that they love and they want to help them and they don't know what to do.
You dialed it in, didn't you?
I can say love. From my side of it.
Yeah. Really, no, I'll tell you, just, you got to keep loving them, love and allow space. You just have to accept that you can't change them yourself. They have to do it on their own. And the course that they're on will run it in the time that they need it to run. And you just got to continue to love and allow yourself the ability to not attach to what they're doing and the destructive nature of their direction.
I used to think to myself, if he could do better, he would do better. Like if he could do better, he would be doing better. Like if he could treat me with, it wasn't like you wanted to be this person, the person that when my family came into town, we were like, don't tell CJ. And that was the only way I could depersonalize it, because I was reading a comment that it feels very personal. And that was on my side of it. I would say if he could do better, he would be doing better.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't willfully choose to live in that zombie state of existence. It's not a goal you set for yourself, and you don't ever plan on staying there. Like I said, at one point I just accepted that was it, that there was nothing else for me, that there was no more tomorrows. And and you don't really know. You don't know. We tried. My ex and I had tried to sober up. We had tried to detox. We went to another city and tried to, do what we could, and we weren't able to. We couldn't do it. We slid back in and we slid back in. And it was heartbreaking to know that I wasn't strong enough to be that person for the person that I was with, to help them have the life that they wanted. Mm-hmm. And I know she felt the same way. And And in that, like for all those people, I wish her like all of the happiness. And all I want to know is that like in that the people that I was involved with in my active addiction that I still see from time to time when I go back to the old town and that are still struggling, and some have made it out, some never made it out. A good handful more buried and back home. And but like that's where I think my purpose comes to know that, like if I can do better from that life, to let them know that they can too, and that it's possible. You know, it's possible. You can get out of it. Like I'm talking to, if you're watching you directly, you can get out. Like you can make it out of where you're. It doesn't have to consume you. It doesn't have to be the end of you. Like you don't have to accept that. Like you can keep fighting. I guarantee there's people out there that love you, that will listen, that'll be there for you. If not, I'm here. This platform's here. This community's here. But you don't have to give up. And I know that for me, the efforts I make now, like I said, are not just about me. It's in the knowledge that other people might be able to find a way. And like I said, we pull the best of us to try to put that out there. But I think it's a lot of the broken parts of me that best represent who I am, because it's a showcase of where I can go and where you can come from. And you don't have to be the sum of all of your mistakes. You can thrive in spite of them. And you don't have to accept that it's all it's going to be. Like your tomorrows are meant for such great things. And if you're listening, or if you're watching, or whatever you might be doing, if you're struggling, like like you are built for something amazing. Like the life you live is meant to be filled with joy, with people that love you, with the ability to love other people. Like you are built to be heard, to be loved, to be embraced. Like you're not meant to just squander it away on a day-to-day grind on trying to find a way to not feel sick. There's so much more to your life than that. And I promise you that, not just from someone who's seen a movie or two, but who I've lived it. And I can tell you right now that there is so much more happiness out there waiting for you. There are so many other things that'll greet you in your life, that'll give you purpose, that'll give you drive, that'll give you meaning, understanding. You'll bring people into your life as you make those steps that'll enrich your soul in ways that you never could have imagined. That I can promise you, absolutely promise you, that you are built to do amazing things. And from the core of the spirituality in me, like as being built in the image of God, you have an omnipotent mold that you were poured into. You are built in the likeness of a creator that's perfect. And every time you use your hands, if you're picking up a bottle or a pipe, whatever it might be, just remember that those are the hands of God. And you're meant to do something amazing with them. And I hope that you don't think that's just a euphemism or some witty quote that came off of like a probation officer's wall, but it's the truth.
It's what our mom taught us.
I can tell you right now that I'm living it.
I mean,
absolutely.
Meeting the measure of your creation is something we've always heard in our home. Like you meet the measure. You were created for a purpose, and you have to meet the measure of your creation. And that's that 1% better, just do a little bit better. And I know that there are times when all you can do is just endure that moment, and then that hour, and then that day. And if your only objective is just to endure, then do that. Just endure that moment and get to the next and get to the next until you are living and not just surviving, like you said.
Yeah. I think Alvin Johnson says, was any moment of addiction intentional? I don't really know how to answer that, but I can tell you that you never really intend to be an addict. You never really, no kid like you see in these pictures is playing, Little League baseball and has got an aspiration to be a drug addict when they grow up. No vision board involves meth pipes and tinfoil and lighters and heroin. Like that's not what you plan for. You know, that's what happens when there's a hole in the boat and you're in the middle of the ocean. It's not the cruise that you bought the ticket for. So no, at no point in time was my addiction intentional. Though I wonder, when I look back at it, like how much of it was maybe a subconscious draw to better understand my father. Maybe there was part of it in there that kept me in a place where I was on some deep metaphysical dive to better understand what took him so far away from his family, and knowing how much he loved us and knowing how much he just adored his children, like that there was something stronger than that. There was something something that was more powerful than that love. So no, you don't plan on that. And I have to know that if, like, my dad could have done better, he would have. If he could have chosen to show up for all of the sporting events and all the family get-togethers and all of the times that he was lost in his world, he would have. But you don't have that control anymore. You've given that up. You've let something else take the wheel, and you just pray to God they don't steer you into a wall, unless they do. And if it happens, pick up those pieces, put them together as best you can, make a commitment to your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your next door neighbor, a friend, a pet, I don't care, but make a commitment that you're going to do what you can to make them happy. Put faith in them. Bring people into your circle that you can trust. Keep that circle very, very small, and just keep doing the next best thing you possibly can. And eventually you'll get there. You will. And it's not going to happen overnight. And you might have to go through it several times. You might relapse. You might fall down and get back up and think you've got it figured out and fall back down. I went through it. You're going to relapse. It's going to happen. And I'm not saying that to be the voice of foreboding, but I did. I thought I had it figured out, and that's why I relapsed. I was arrogant. I was cocky. I thought that I'd beat it, that I'd whoop Mr. Addiction.
Is there any part of you that's afraid that you would relapse at this point?
Now?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Today, where I'm at, is not the same sober that I was 7 years ago when I had my my real relapse after any length of sobriety. Because at the time I didn't do the work. And you'll learn if you go through programs and whatnot, that there's more to it than just becoming sober. The hard work comes in after you've gotten your sobriety. It's about finding a dedicated aspect of your effort. Like I said, my brother John, our now brother John, our mom, lovingly, he had never gotten a birthday card. And this is how much love that I have for my family. This guy had never got a birthday card in his life.
Yeah.
He was 44 years old. Our mother started writing him letters directly while he was in prison. Mm-hmm. Even after we went our own way, when I got out, she continued to write letters, and every week she sent him a birthday card. Every week he got a birthday card in the mail to make up for the 44 that he never received. That kind of love, that kind of tight circle.
Calls her Mama Linda.
Mama Linda. Like, there's nothing about John right now that doesn't know. And if he doesn't know that he's family, then I haven't said it enough. But there's nothing about the love that I have for him and that our mother has for him that he has for our family that isn't as real as it gets. But I never would have found that had I not been there. But every week, 44 birthday cards. He kept them on a wall, like, and it was celebrated by other people. Like, where did they come from? And he would tell the story. Well, let me tell you about this guy I met. Some guy I thought was a skinhead. When we write the book, that's the story we'll tell. I was like, oh, great. Just another burnout. And he's like, oh, great. Just another skinhead. And we realized that, like, in that cell that, 22-hour lockdown, that you have the opportunity to really get to know somebody. And that's, like I said, where I learned to ask questions and not make assumptions. It's pretty easy to read someone's court paperwork and assume you know them. Real easy. And I think that happens a lot. It's happening in the world right now, around me even. But until you sit down and actually ask those questions and get to know that person, you'll never know. We read each other's paperwork 100 times over. There's not a lot to read. So you read what you have. You got your paperwork when you're in there.
Mhm.
But I got to know John, and he got to know me, and we made promises to each other, and in that we were able to get to a place where like I had a higher purpose, and that's the thing you talk about in NA and AA is a higher power. And I already had that, and I grew up with that, and I think a lot of people don't have that opportunity. They don't grow up with a spirituality that helps culture their or nurture their morals and their values and ethics. I think sometimes it's just an idea, but it's not really a practice. And sometimes, I'm not saying all, but sometimes. But like the experience there that I had was very different when you have that immersive opportunity to get to know somebody and to allow yourself to be known by somebody. That's a big deal too. And a lot of times people don't know how to do that. They don't know how to open up themselves to this. And if you guys think this is my sweet spot, it's not. This is so incredibly uncomfortable. Like
Yep.
I'm sitting here with my sister and we're talking about our family and my deceased father and his drug addiction and my drug addiction and the complexities of our relationship. I can't think of a time. Have any of you ever sat down in front of, we'll say, 10,000 people and had a conversation about the dynamic of your family and how screwed up some of the things can be, or the things you've done in your life? Like, I
I wouldn't
think
open my
not.
journal up. I mean, and I have to circle back around really quick.
Yeah.
Like our dad was a prescription drug addict, and he had his issues. He was kind of similar in his story to drug addiction as CJ. His dad was an alcoholic. His mom died when he was young from cancer. He got in a motorcycle accident when he was 16 and got addicted to prescription pain medications around that time. But obviously there was a hole there that it was a coping strategy for him. But like he did come to all of our games. Like he came to all my piano recitals. He came to all of my like he let us know that we were the most important. His greatest love in life was his children. So
He
even
was
though
very proud of us. Very proud of
he
us.
was very proud. I'll tell a quick story. When I was playing softball going through school, my dad was really obnoxiously loud. Like CJ knows this. He laughed really loud. He gestured really big. Like everything he did was just
Right.
grandiose. And he was a tall guy too. So he was just this big guy. And he would come to my baseball games and he would be in the crowd and he'd be like, "Go Shamashu!" Like he was so loud. And I would be like, "Dad, could you chill?" But he was at every game. And I remember when I played catcher and we had these bright yellow outfits and I was wearing the whole catcher gear. And he started calling me he said, "Oh, you look like a bumblebee." He said that on the way to the game. And I was like, okay. And then during the game, he's like, get after it, Bumblebee, get after it. And at first I was mortified. I was like, are you serious right now? But then other people in the crowd were calling me Bumblebee and like encouraging me. And I just thought my dad just did that. Like he made me somebody. And through all of like the moments of embarrassment and the times where I thought, could he just not be so much him? Like I look back and I just think of that day of him standing in the stands, like standing up. Who stands up at like a girls softball game? He's standing up and shouting, "Get after it, Bumblebee, you got it." And then other people were shouting for me. Like, yeah, he had his problems, but he he loved us like something crazy.
You know what I never did with Dad?
Hmm.
And we talked about this earlier. Was I never judged him for that. The
You
problems that
didn't?
he had with our no, the
Oh, I
problems that
thought
he
you
had
meant
with
for, like, the bigness of him.
no, that I did definitely. I was
Yeah.
mortified by Dad's grandiose way. Like when I was the new kid in school in junior high, and I'm hanging out. I'm hanging out with the eighth graders at this point. I'm a seventh grader, the new kid. There's a volleyball game taking place, the girls' volleyball game, and we're talking. It was the seventh grade volleyball, and I'm talking to all of like the cool kids and the eighth grade volleyball girl team, feeling as cool as you can get. And Dad was picking me up. In walks Dad in his army fatigues, and he wanders into the middle of the volleyball game, just oblivious to what's going on. Like they had to stop the game, and he's looking up in the stands and just starts, CJ, anybody seen CJ? And immediately everyone's like, wait, you mean the new guy right here? That guy? Yeah, no, that's Dad that I remember absolutely. So yeah, no, not for that. I absolutely judge him for that. because dad, if you're listening, that was mortifying. Everything about that.
And his clap too. Remember
But
his
nah,
clap?
oh my,
It was like his
he had
whole
that dad
body was
clap. Yeah.
into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Even the way he sneezed was loud. Like he was just that guy. But I can tell you that I never judged him for the issues that he had with mom. You know, and that never even registered. Looking back, like I can honestly say, I never really was like, you two should do better. And even after their divorce and everything else, like I never thought like, oh, you need to do better. There's one moment that I was mad at him, and it came down to like issues with the house where we grew up out in the country. And that was the only time I really got mad and had words with him. It wasn't even words. It was like angsty youth from a 15-year-old kid. You know what I mean? That was like, you should do this. I didn't know what he was going through. You know, living in a car trying to figure it out. But I never judged him on that. Even looking back, like I don't look back on dad as, you know, the drug addict. You know what I mean? Even saying that just sounds harsh to even put that brand on dad, like to be like, oh, he was just a drug addict.
Yeah, I don't
It
think
breaks my heart. Like I've never cared about what he did, what drugs he did. I've never cared about if he had a criminal record. I've never looked into any of that because he was my father. He was my dad. He loved me. And that's what I'm going to remember. That's what I'm going to hold on to, is the best parts of him that made the best parts of me. And remember moving forward that we all have the opportunity to make decisions in our life that are our own. But like I said in the very beginning of this, yeah, there's a foundation that's laid in front of us, a base of existence that we're built on, and we're born into that. And like his parents before him, he had to deal with some uphill battles. He was fighting through the addiction that his parents had and the arguments and fights that they had. But he did the best he could with what he had. Like you said, if he could have done better, he would have. But he was doing the best he could. And so I've never faulted him for that. I've never faulted him for not being able to, buy me cool clothes or whatever else a kid would fault a parent for. And as an adult, like I feel like I've been able to repair the relationship that we had in the last several years of his drug addiction through my understanding after my own addiction. And it gave me a much better understanding of what that life was like and how hard it's like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like being on a roller coaster ride and like your support beam pops off and you're just praying to God through the whole thing that they don't go around a bend too fast or go upside down because you're not going to make it. And it's
is that when you're
anxiety
actually in drugs? Is that what you're describing?
When you're in drugs, their anxiety is there because you always know that at any point in time, like something could happen, and so, and that type of like chaotic, undefined existence is one that like it takes you to crazy places, man. So I never faulted dad for that. I never faulted him for his addiction, and I understand him better after having gone through it enough to know that like it didn't make him who he is. You know what I mean? He was the dad that, like I said, loud clap, big sneeze, gregarious guy that stood out in a crowd and loved his kids, without question, and spoke so highly of us to anybody that would listen. And and that's what I feel is the important thing, that as we move forward in life, like those are the hallmarks that we can hold on to of people, right? The character that I see in the man, there's a love that he provided. I'm not going to define him by the demons that he was struggling with. But all too often people do that in the world we live in. He was just a drug addict.
And it's not just drug addicts. Like the feeling you're describing, I think could be attached to anyone who's experienced any sort of mental health issues, like depression, anxiety. I know I had a little postpartum with one of my kids, and that feeling of like everything being so tenuous and out of control, like I think a lot of people experience that, not just people that have drug issues. Is that Emily walking in the room?
No.
Oh, I thought Emily just came by. Must be the cat. But yeah, I think that it's important to note that you don't have to be, I don't know, that everyone can have that sense, have that sort of struggle.
But you said something there too, and it kind of ties into a lot of comments, is that, sometimes you have to protect people from themselves. You know what I mean? Sometimes people aren't able to do it, like I'm even in a situation out here where I'm having to like take steps to give space between another person and myself so that there's not a potential for there to be negativity and hostility there. I don't want that to even exist between me and anybody. So if we have to go through legalities to make that happen, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with making sure that there's safe space to exist in. You should always feel safe walking out of your house. You should always feel comfortable in a crowd type thing. So for me personally, like I'm having to go for it, to go, and it's uncomfortable, and it's not something I ever wanted to do. I've never, but I realize that sometimes people aren't able to do better for themselves, and then it'll affect other people around them, and so unfortunately I'm having to deal with that right now, and it's sad because again I just wish nothing but the best to everybody. Like for that individual, I just want to see whatever help is needed that they get that help. Whatever life happened that got them to where they're at in that existence is they're able to find a way to work through that and get to a better place. Because it's not, man, when you're fighting it, man, like it sucks. I don't care if you're like my worst enemy. Not that I have those really, but I don't want to see anybody going through it like that. I don't want to see anybody, struggling. I never want to see anybody stuck in addiction ever. I don't care who you are. Like, you could wrong me every way from Sunday, but like I don't ever want to see anybody struggle with that because that's no matter what, no good will come from that. Like in your life, like, and it may affect you and I, but now everything else you do is going to be negatively affected. And I don't want to see that from anybody in our world, especially. Like nobody should want that or take joy in that or revel in it with somebody else, even if it's your neighbor down the street. Like, because with everybody in the community we live in, be it your local street, your local city, town, state, neck of the woods, your, whatever postal code you live in, their pain, their hurt, the things that are negatively affecting them are going to affect you eventually. And I know that personally. Like the house that I lived in was just a normal house before I moved into it. And then it slowly became a place where a drug addict lived. And then other drug addicts lived there. And then it became a place where people could come to do drugs. And then the neighborhood was now affected by all this influx of drug addiction. And it became a haven for drugs. And then, of course, with drugs comes crime and all these other things that were happening. Other people that would come in, they'd go around and maybe break into a car down the street. So if you don't think it affects you, like it does, which is why we got to do better. Help pick people up, man. Pray for them,
I think humanizing them is the first step.
Yeah.
Like what you're doing right now, just like they're human beings with struggles, just like they're only so many steps away from you because we all have these struggles. We all have coping mechanisms, and that person on the street or the person dealing with mental health or the person dealing with anxiety, depression, addiction, it doesn't matter. They're human beings, and it's okay to talk to them on a level of a human being and not just, like you said, stamp somebody with you're an addict stamp and then write them off as that's their identity.
I easily could have done that with John when I met him in the cell. Like we joked, like just another burnout, just some drug addict. Great, I got to deal with this guy now. This is going to be uncomfortable. He's like, oh, just some other, some skinhead. And he says that only because, to be clear, because I have a shaved head. They don't give you clippers and haircuts in there. You just shave your head. So that's just the assumption when you're like a 260-pound guy with a shaved head in the joint. That's the assumption, not the reality. But if I'd have made that assumption about him, I wouldn't have John in my life. John in my life is one of the most important people in my life right now, amongst all of our immediate family, for more than just the fact that like he loves me, I love him. He's part of like, the inner circle, but the purpose that I have because of him and working to be the best person I can be for him is wildly important to me. It helps my sobriety. And I tell him all the time, like, John, without you, like there would be no me probably. Like, I don't know. I can't ever weed you out of who I am because I work so diligently to be strong in the times when I know you need me to, you know what I mean? And so if I would have just written him off based off the court paperwork that I read of his and his general aesthetics, it'd have been pretty easy to miss out on one of the biggest people in my life, And so I got to remind myself, and I hope that everybody is reminded of that. Like, you can't read it. You obviously can't judge a book by its cover, but don't even judge a book by the first chapter or two. You got to get into it. You know what I mean? Like, you can easily read the back flap and get an idea of what you think the book's all about, but that's not going to firmly represent what it is or what it might mean to you. You know what I mean? Because it's easy. Like if someone gifts you a book, and this happened a lot in the joint, you get a book from somebody else, or these books that are sent in or left out, or someone, highlighted some passages. That highlighted passage, and this isn't for anyone in general, if you've ever borrowed a book, may mean absolutely nothing to you. Like that highlighted passage can be completely inconsequential and have zero bearing on your life. And you're just wondering, like, what is that line about? But for somebody else, when they read that book, that line perfectly caught that moment. And they took it a point to be like, I need to highlight that. I'm going to quote it later, and it'll fit into my life story. That one line. And all too often with people in life, like there's a highlight moment between people that we hold on to. And it may not mean anything to someone else, but for you, that's incredibly important enough for you to take the moment to really recognize it and embrace it and remember it. But a lot of times we'll see that highlight from someone else and be like, I know this person now, or I figured them out, and you highlight the wrong things, you know what I mean? And then it becomes the book that you think people are going to read about you. But, I just pray that I can keep writing my own chapters. I can keep moving in the right direction. I can keep becoming who it is that I'm working on being. And I don't know who that is entirely yet. I'm working on it.
I was going to say,
but I know it's a good thing.
I'd like to talk a little bit about, you said that John gives you purpose, like the purpose you serve in his life. And I know coming from the place of where you're at right now, like what you're doing right now, I know is very purpose driven. Will you talk about that for just a minute?
Say that one more time.
I said, I know what you're doing now and where you're at in your life is very purpose driven. And I feel like you're hitting on something there that in order to like elevate your life, you have to find that piece of purpose. And I think it's pretty incredible too, that part of your purpose is to be a strong place for John, a person you met in prison. Just talk to me a little bit about purpose being especially a motivator for sobriety or for getting yourself out of that spiral.
I mean, a lot of it just comes down to being available to people, and accountable. And I think that's a big deal. It's about accountability, about owning what you've done, and being willing to accept that, And it's interesting because, like, no matter what the comments that come through, and I'm sorry, I got to touch on it. Like, there's still people that assume that, like someone said, like, he had the opportunity to talk about this. And like, no one provides me the opportunities in my life. I make them 100%. This is because I hit broadcast, and all of you are watching this because we built something here. You know what I mean? So, and you don't have to like me, you know what I mean? But understand that, like, I own who I am 100%. And moving into the life you live, you own you, and you can be you. You don't have to justify that to anybody else at all. And you don't have to like each other either. That's a big thing. You don't have to agree with each other, but you don't have to engage either.
Yeah.
Walk away. I wish that earlier in life, like I said, in my house, the day I was arrested, I wish that I had just walked away. And like, you know what? I'm not going to let this go the way it went. I'm going to walk away. I'm not going to get into this crazy kerfuffle with drugs and everything else that was involved there. I should have just walked away, but I didn't. But all too often we're like, no, you owe me this, and it's not what it is. You know what I mean? No, you don't owe anybody anything. You don't owe anybody anything at all, other than the people that you owe something to, and it's not the general public. Trust me on that.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, you do better than I do. When people act like asshats, I'm like, you go live your best life. Just go live your own life, because people come after, I mean, people have come after CJ since he started streaming, and I get that. The higher you get, the more people want to knock you down, right? Yeah. And some of the crazy stuff, but I don't know if, a part of the thing, and you're probably seeing stuff in the comments, is that people want to knock him down, and he has to deal with it, and he can choose to either address it, move past it, or whatever. And let me just ask, has anyone ever seen CJ taking the aggressive course? Like when people come up to him in the field and they get in hostile with him and engage with him, if anyone has watched him, has anyone seen him be like, yeah, let's go knuckles, bring it, let's do it? Or does he try to be the voice of reason and step away and try to keep things moving forward, right? So if you want to question his integrity and question who he is, look at his actions, because I think they kind of stand for themselves. Why are you laughing at that?
I was like, here comes the sisters, sister protection.
So the thing is,
I dare you.
I don't know how often. I don't know how much I feel like you've kind of. Can I?
One time he yelled at a guy. One time he yelled at a guy in Seattle. But it's funny because, I do have to spend a lot of time swallowing my pride, if you will, and stomaching the fact that, like, people feel like, and it's funny because people just assume. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, but people assume like they can just violate your bubble and be like, you know what, I'm going to tell you about you. I'm like, whoa, I wouldn't walk up to you in a Chick-fil-A and start screaming in your face because I don't like your choice of sandwich. You know what I mean? Like, or the shirt you're wearing, or, the flag you got waving off the back of your truck or whatever. I wouldn't do that. It just blows my mind that people feel like that's the entitlement that a lot of people have is like, no, let me tell you about you. And I'm like, stop you right there. First of all, I don't even know me 100% yet. I'm trying to figure it out. So I guarantee you don't know me. Let me just be very clear about that. But but again, I'm not I'm like AJ or Alvin says, I'm no punk. Like when it comes down to it, like I just don't choose to engage in that type of exchange with people. It's not going to solve anything. And then I become it becomes a story.
Well, the thing too is it's interesting because I've seen the other side of CJ. Like he has a history. When I was in college, he'd come visit me, and him and his buddy would go to frat row, and they'd knuckle up, and they just enjoyed fight. I mean, he did a lot of stupid boy
What?
stuff.
You were never in a sorority.
You went in Neil. No, I mean you guys would
when I was
go to
babysitting you.
I was in college. You and Neil would go up, and they would just do stupid boy stuff. Like, and so when people come up to him and they get all aggressive, I still am honestly impressed often because I'm like, because it makes him. I mean, the thing is, what you guys don't see on camera, he handles himself very well in that moment. He walks away, he disengages, and then he calls me and we decompress, and it bothers him. Like, I hope you don't mind me saying that, but it really, really bothers him. It's upsetting. It niggles at him, and he has to process it and let it go and let it go and let it go. And I can't imagine I've only been in the field with him a couple of times when people have been really aggressive. It is really hard to let it go, but he lets it go and then goes back again, gets affronted, gets assaulted. You guys, he doesn't ever go into the field these days without somebody having an opinion about something. Seriously, you may not see it on camera a lot, but there's some level of it happening because people are asshats and whatever. But he figures out a way to let it go. And so this current situation, someone's being an asshat, they're coming after him, and he's like, look, he's taking the higher road time and time and time again. So if you have any questions about what CJ's character is, do your homework, watch a couple of streams, and I challenge any of you to go through the thousands of hours of footage that we have to see CJ try to knuckle up with somebody, try to like escalate a situation that could be de-escalated. Any of you, please do it. I'll pay you $10 if you can find me a video clip of CJ saying, hey, come on over, let's do this, let's fight it out, let's whatever, because it's not who he is. It's not how he conducts himself. So current situation.
I appreciate you saying that. But it's almost true, adorable that, like the way you talk about it. Like,
oh, I heard he did this or that, and I'm like, okay. People say what they heard, but it's a game of telephone. You know what I mean? Like you got one person that's like in a troll world, and they whisper into someone's ear, and they whisper into someone's ears, and it's already started off in the troll world, but it ends up in like the trollosphere of ridiculousness. So, well, then but it's whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's truth because I said it. It's not truth just because someone says it.
No, exactly. But again, perception's reality. I'm not trying to take away from anyone else's truths. If that's how you feel, you own it. That's yours. You can feel that way. I don't have to feel the same way. I don't have to agree with you. You might be completely incorrect, but it's not my place to correct you. You can feel that way. Just don't aggressively assume that you're able to like spit your views and theory and philosophy on somebody at somebody. Like you don't have that right. You know what I mean? Like you have the right to free speech. I get that. But if you think you're allowed to violate someone's like personal space and like be that person that thinks they're going to go ahead and educate somebody about themselves, like, come on, let go of yourself for a little bit. Let go of themselves. And I've had to have words. Like there have been a handful of times where I've had to let people know, like, hey man, you need to give me some space. You need to back up, give me some room. Because like I said, I'd rather build a healthy atmosphere of my surroundings. You know what I mean? I work hard on building a healthy dynamic around me, and I don't need to have that. I'm not there to be I'm not there to be the story. I'm there to cover what's happening. Not
well, I think more than that, you command your space, but you know your power. Like you command your space. You're not trying to prove to the other baboons that you're the biggest one there. You already know that. Like you know what you are and what you can do. So it's not. I see these guys out there and I'm like, they're a bunch of talk because they know they have nothing behind it. You don't, what is the phrase you say? Something about a tiger, like they don't see it coming because you're eating. what is, I don't know. You have a
No,
control
that
of
wasn't
your
me. That
faith.
was Malcolm X.
Oh, okay, never mind
Malcolm
then.
X was talking about foxes and wolves. That's a very different analogy, and it's
No,
about
no,
a
no.
very different
Okay. You
situation.
said it one time and I thought, oh, that's funny because no, I
Anyway,
said it to you. I said it to you. Anyway, I said they're all a bunch of monkeys flaking around because they know they're monkeys and they're standing in front of a tiger, jumping around like monkeys, and they don't realize they're standing in front of a tiger. Like, if you wanted, you
all
could
right.
eviscerate them. And they're, anyway.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate the accolades as a tiger
It
fighting
got off,
monkeys.
went off the
I
rails
don't
there
know
for a
how
minute.
I
Sorry.
don't know how that applies, but thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, no, not that that's ever my focus. And again, uh, I don't plan on biting anybody, no matter how much they want to fling feces. I guess to draw it back in. But
Please don't.
but what I'm getting at though, and I seriously, like, it might make me wildly uncomfortable when you start talking like that, because it's like I don't need my sister to fight my fights for me, but I appreciate that you love me enough and you're willing to put that out there, and to be to be that mama bear, as Cindy says. I appreciate that.
Well, and you're
But
secure enough to know that you could fight your battles if you wanted. Anyone knows
I
that.
yeah, and I don't want to. That's
Not
the
even
thing, is
a,
I don't want to be that guy, and I have no desire to be out there just running fisticuffs and battling it out in the streets. Like, trust me, like, dental work is way too expensive. I'll tell you right now, man, way too expensive. Like, all the work that I'm still having to get done right now, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that it takes to fix the stupidity of your past. So yeah, I don't need to get punched in the face. I don't want that. I got a big face. I'll tell you right now, getting punched sucks. But yeah, so I appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, it's good to know that our family reps for each other. You know what I mean? Which is great. But I don't want to go too far off. I know we've already been on here for like 2 hours, and there's been a lot of things that we've kind of covered. And I think one of the things that I think is really important is that we appreciate that, like, what I wanted to make sure people were aware of are some of these statistics right now in the world, and these are important points, along with everything. I'm going to put a few of them up here. So the CDC currently shows that drug overdose deaths reached a record high in 2020 of 93,000 people, guys. That's a preventable number. And these are things that we can work towards rectifying. And I know that, like I said, a lot of the mistakes that I've made involve drugs. And I don't discredit anybody for the reality of their existence. I don't blame anybody for the things that I've done. 100% everything that I've done and everything that I've been a part of is 100% my own doing. But I can appreciate the fact they're dealing with like a record high, borderline epidemic situation right now, where drug overdoses. We're not just talking about those that are fighting addiction. So again, for this, I would encourage you, if you know somebody, to reach out to them, provide maybe some support. Maybe it's just verbal, maybe it's just a hug, maybe it's a phone number. But if that's the case, I know we've got this number right here is 800-662-4357. It's an addiction treatment hotline. You can also go to findtreatment.gov, and there's resources available there. And I only put that up because I know there's a million different organizations, but it's a national reach, and you could kind of go based off your demographic. One of the other things that's very important for us to talk about right now, that's important for me, and this is something that I think that is a staggering number. And as it says here, let me make sure I've got this right quick, is where we at? A suicide right now. You guys look at this, this to me breaks my heart. It's the second leading cause of death for people between the ages of 10 and 34. We're talking about suicide. And the fourth leading cause for among people that are between the age of 35 and 44, and the fifth leading cause among people that are between the age of 45 and 54. I know there's some demographic swings in there, but what we do have are, again, preventable deaths right now. The fact that it is the second leading cause of death for children between the ages of, starting as early as the age of 10, is horrific. And I know that the current date, as of December 1st, 2021, we are seeing a record high in adolescent suicides, and it's terrible. And we can do better. We got to work on finding a way to make a change. And so I think that it's important that we address these things and find people in your life that might need a hand, that might need some encouragement, a young person that might need a talking to, or just someone to listen. And again, if that's something that they're dealing with, and they're dealing with some real issues, there's the National Alliance on Mental Health, which again is the NAMI.org. That's an 800 number, 800-950-6264. Make a call, even if you need advice or coaching on how to go through it with somebody, there's resources out there. There's counselors, there's people that can help walk you through best next steps. And I know that's important to do with folks. But I think that between all the things that we deal with here and everything, I want to first, thank my sister for being willing to come in here, chit chat with us, flex on folks, if you will, let them know that, my sister's got my back here. But also to let you guys know there's a better way, and you're not stuck, you're not lost it completely. Like your life can be turned around, and trust me on that. Like I had to do it. Like I said, I spent a year incarcerated based off the wings of a domestic fight that I got into, that I wish I'd have been able to do things different looking back. And it again, you can paint it however you want, but no matter what, it was the turning point that got me to where I'm at today. But you're never the sum elements of all the mistakes in the past that you've lived. You're 100% capable right now, whether you see it or not, of turning a corner and having that be the next best place for you. I think it's important that we remember that everyone has a story, and it's important to listen to them tell their story. Don't listen to the hearsay. Don't listen to the trolls. Don't believe the hype, no matter how scripted it may be. But go to the source and talk to people. Get to know them based off the merit of their character and the things that they do, and allow people grace, as I know that God would allow it to all of us, you included, whether you believe in Him or not. But we can move forward. We can do better. We collectively, as a community here, I know, support one another, and I hope that Alvin, I understand, and I back you and I support you, and I hope you guys know that like we're moving forward, and I am, and unfortunately there's steps that have to be taken right now as to put things where they're at, to make sure we have safe space to operate in, and that's important. So I hope that as we do that, you guys can work with me on that one, to work with me in establishing safe parameters for people to operate in. Give them a chance. Give people a chance. You know what I mean? Give yourself a chance, and you might find yourself really proud of the things you're able to accomplish. God is good, Jen. You're right. God is good, and I really hope that this message carries through. I know it wasn't just all about me, but it did come back to me because, again, I can only speak from personal experience. I can't talk about anyone else's lives or the realities that they existed through. But I don't mind being transparent. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with talking about my past because, like I said, I've dealt with it. I've gone through it, and it's got me to where I'm at. And I hope all of you can do that too. Allow yourself the grace to appreciate that your past is your past. You went through that. You don't have to dwell in it. Don't let it hold real estate in your life today. Do what you need to do to put the put the closing points, closing punctuation on those highlighted verses of the pain of your yesterday, because we can do that. And if you need someone's help to do that, reach out. You know what I mean? Reach out to people that have gone through it. Ask someone going through recovery if you could be some of their part of their club, because I can tell you right now, like you'll find strength in that struggle that'll astound you. It'll amaze you how strong people can be, especially when you're fighting off the when you're fighting off those demons of addiction, man. I can tell you right now, man, you'll find strength in there that you never knew you had. Give people a chance, allow them an opportunity to thrive in your life, but allow yourself the same grace. And I say that a lot, man, but I mean it 100%. You're worth so much. Your life is so incredibly important. The things that you can offer the world, you may not even understand yet, but you will. Because I can tell you where I'm at right now talking to you. 4 years ago, I never would have imagined I'd be sitting here right now. I never would have thought that there would be this at all. Never. Like I said, a little over 4 years ago, like I was strapped to a bed in a hospital, chained to a bed rather, because I tried to kill myself in jail. But here we are. You can change. Your life can be better. You're valid. You're worthy. You're loved. You're capable. You're wonderful. And I can keep giving you these slogans, but like these are things that my mom piped into me as a kid. And we'd wake up with these affirmations every day, and it drove me nuts at the time, but we'd say it as a family. And you can say it to yourself. You remember the Shama.
CJ, do you remember
Um,
the thing Mom used to make us say every day? Should we tell it to the people?
I love,
I
word
I
for
like
word, it'd be tough.
I remember it.
I like myself. I love myself. I believe in myself and
I
my whole
trust
family, right?
I trust
I trust
myself.
myself
I love myself and the whole family.
and
So
my whole
she
family.
would every day we would say family prayer, and then we'd have to say, I like myself, I believe in myself, I trust myself, I love myself, and the whole family. And even if we had friends over,
Then we'd
didn't
swing in for a big hug and we'd break out into song and dance and play our you know, our jug flute and our washboard, you know, fish song, whatever it is. But no, it's important to know. And like I said, you got family that loves you. It's amazing that I've got like my sister here, and she can, you know, she's not going. I'm gonna throw her right back in here. But I've got this woman sitting next to me right here. She may be across the country, but that in itself is grace. That in itself is all that I would need to know. If all of this went away, that I was able to get this person back in my life. That I was able to rebuild this relationship. If everything else didn't work out for me, if all this fell apart, at least that would make all of this worthwhile. Because really, it comes down to that, man. Just appreciate the fact that there's people in your life, not situations, that love you, that'll dictate how you can love yourself. Maybe I don't know if that's 100% true with everybody, but I've learned how to really love myself as well through the love that I've gotten from my family here. And there's people out there. There's people out there. But do the next right thing. You know, if you're struggling, reach out. If you see someone struggling, reach out. Meet them in the middle. Sometimes if you need a hug, the best way to get that hug is to hug someone else. I'm gonna tell you right now, but more often than not, 99% of the time, you're gonna get that hug back, and it might be exactly what both of you need. So, for all of you that hung out and listened, I appreciate it. For anyone that was curious about some stuff, I hope that answered some questions. For folks that were just tuning in to say hello, howdy, and a lot of love and respect to everybody out here who's fighting the good fight.
And if
And
anyone
remember that
tuned in
it's
just to be an asshat, I'll give me your number. I'll take care of business. I don't care.
email Shama, she'll handle it. But I appreciate you guys seriously so much for being here. I love you all, and again, share it out, and hopefully this is what people needed to hear. I know it's what I needed to say, and I'm glad Shama was here to share it with me. So, yeah, your story is important. Don't ever let people tell you that it's not. Like, what you have to say is very valid, and even though I don't shut up, it's because I feel like I still have a whole lot more to say. So you're going to see a lot more of me regardless. You know, if folks want to unfollow or follow, regardless, I'm still going to be here, still talking. And I'm glad you guys are able to join me and be a part of that as well. So thank you guys. And again, happy birthday to my brother Adam. And
Happy birthday, Adam.
Birthday. I love you guys. Have a great night. Take care of yourself.